At the end of the last episode, we knew that this episode would be perhaps the most important in this series' history. We knew that this episode would be perhaps the biggest turning point, because one way or another, some heads have to roll, some people have to go, and it's tough to say just who exactly should. The decision on what to do with the likes of Brock Sestito, Josiah Niedermayer, and forwards the like of Nazarov and Krog, it's put us into a rough spot where we're playing a very dangerous game in terms of the salary cap. And unfortunately, this was always going to be the case. We just had to hope to find some success before this happened, and that is not the case. So that brings us to today's episode, and after thinking about it for much longer than I care to admit, after looking over your feedback where there were some solid arguments for both keeping Sestito and Niedermayer and letting both of them go, keeping one over the other, I think I've come to a decision, and whether or not it's the right decision, I honestly don't know, and I don't think that we're going to know for sure until we see how this all plays out. But we're at a time right now where the questions of whether or not this core is ever going to win are certainly there. The question of the timetable that we're on, considering someone like Howard Fragapani's 29 years old, that's the theme of this series right now, is that we just have far too many questions. And when it comes to a Draft to Glory series, we often fall in the trap of holding on to core players for too long and postponing that quick rebuild for far too long, and by the time we're trying to get built back up, we hit the 25-year limit and we run out of time. And taking all of that into account, Brock Sestito, a former third-round pick who I put my faith into. We passed up on another franchise goalie to try and get some help elsewhere. He has turned into a tremendous goaltender in the regular season. In the playoffs, he has been phenomenal at times. But with him asking for $15 million plus to stay every year, year after year, we wait for him to be willing to sign an extension, and it just hasn't happened. For that reason, Brock Sestito is going to the free agent list, and this is like putting down Old Yeller behind the barn for me. Every Draft to Glory series is known for its great goaltenders, and he's been tremendous. But the trouble that he's going to put us into cap-wise year in and year out, I think at this point it's too much to overcome to have to do this act every year with trying to get him to resign. I think it's better to let him go now and just try to see what comes of it in terms of other goalies perhaps developing and seeing what we can do cap-wise and maybe bringing in some help and keeping some extra. He's gone. He's gone. It sucks, but he's gone. For that reason, we are going to try and keep Iliakis. He is going to be the man here in Oakland for the foreseeable future. I am just going to go with the 3-year deal for now. I feel like that's fair. We could go for a little bit of a higher mark, but we don't know what the goalie situation's going to be in the future, to be honest. It might not be the worst idea to keep him around. And actually, really, it does depend here. So what would this be if he ended up getting the max 8 years? It'd be about $6 million. So you can drop that down to about 5.5, drop that down to about 5 mil, and from there, 5.4-ish, I do believe, actually, it'd be a little bit lower than that. It'd be much lower than that. That'd be 4.7. 5 years at 4.8, or the 3 years at significantly less. I think we're just going to go for the 3 years, and it might make him more likely to sign, especially doing the 85% trick. It's going to be 4 years over 3, or 3 years over 4. God, I'm a mess right now because I'm nervous for this. This isn't what we wanted, and had the team just won something before we reached this point, it would have been fine. $4 million over 3 years is the offer to Iliakis. We still have Saprikin, Crab, and Fragapani. Defensively, Josiah Niedermayer is looking for over $13 million a year. Fuller, Rokon, Zieler, Pielstrom, Richter, and probably Hancock to try and get him to develop. Josiah Niedermayer, a former number 4 overall pick. Someone who's been capable of putting up points in the past. Josiah Niedermayer's gone too. We're going to look to take a step back. We're going to look to do this retooling now. As much as it sucks. But the asking prices here are just too goddamn high. And there's really no way for us to properly deal with that. 2, 1. Alright, we need one more defenseman. And it's going to be either Blatny or Francois. And it's going to be Rene Francois. Although, Canadian at 19, not a guarantee. It's going to be Blatny, just because I don't know for sure if Francois would be allowed to play in the AHL. So we'll sign Blatny for that reason. Oh, God. All right. Krog, there's still an offer sent out to, but here's what we're going to do as well. Nazarov, we're going to qualify. Nylander, I'm going to try one more time to work out a deal with him to see if this will work. I mean, if he's willing to sign for that right there, that would be tremendous. We'll see. We have room to negotiate from here. Kurt Eddy as a 4th liner isn't terrible. He's willing to resign as well, and as an RFA, I don't think we'd get that much compensation. So I'm willing to try and hit him with the 85% as well, just to see if that will go through, especially now too with how the situation has changed on this team. And Vita Luoma will also send an offer too. I, again, could not tell you for sure if that's the right move. I don't know if it is. I genuinely don't know if that's the right move to let those two go. And obviously it sucks because there's no compensation there. They're just gone. As opposed to these RFAs where we might end up getting some compensation, or I could even match the offer. But this is what happens when you don't win in your proper time frame. Oh, God. That's not to say, depending on what they're asking for on the open market, that I might not still make a move. There's a couple of players, quite a few players, just rejected, actually. Nylander ended up signing, though, for a pretty good price, which isn't bad. And, of course, we do have that extra money right now to throw around if need be. Iliakis rejected the full-on 85%. So we'll drop that down to like 4.25, give him a little bit more, see if that goes through. If not, he may end up going to the free agent list, but we have the ability to negotiate, and if things go poorly, we can, offer sheet. So, as far as Steve Krog is concerned, I'm going to go about 5.25 for 1 year. It makes sense to keep him for at least one more season. Nazarov, I'm going to try to sign as well. I can't believe he's asking for 10 if we were to sign him long term. That's absolutely absurd. But signing him... What would be a half decent offer here? If he were to go for the 85%, I wish I could type correctly. This would certainly help. Basically 5.6 over 2 years. It's not bad. It's not bad. I doubt he accepts it, but it's worth a shot. And obviously, if he continues onward to the free agent market, then we get him for whatever. We'll see if Eddie will take $2 million for the next year. It's not the best contract for him, but it is what it is. Roenick as well is an interesting case where he's just flat out not worth this, but his offensive awareness and shooting category is interesting enough that I'm willing to overpay him for the next season. We have one more day of negotiations. Roenick's still rejected. He's insane. Krog is back. Eddie signed. Iliakis still rejected, as did Nazarov. So a couple of these guys are being pretty ridiculous here in terms of their expectations, as if then again, I mean, it's as if they didn't learn from the best in terms of trying to demand the most. So for Nazarov, again, we'll still try to get him for cheap. Even like 5.8. I'm going to try like 5.8 for 2 years, and we'll see. Again, I'm going to have room to negotiate with him regardless. And then Iliakis, the 3 years, I'll just offer him 4.5 over 3 years, and we'll see if he takes that. Aside from Roenick, we're safe, we're covered. Even if Roenick hits the open market, I can still negotiate, and he will hit the open market. Iliakis is signed, Nazarov rejected, and will be on the free agent list. So Roenick and Nazarov, alongside Niedermeyer, and Sestito hit the open. Still have $24 million to work with, right? Like, we have room here that we might not necessarily be done. We might not be out of this. I am still going to send Roenick a deal. Maybe he's come to his goddamn senses about what he's doing here. But we're still looking okay. So if I go to RFAs and I look out right, Nazarov is the top guy. He's looking for 7.6, which is batshit insane. I'm going to offer him like 1 year, $6 million, even though that's lower than his asking price, just to see if we can get him back. We also have Sestito. How much are you looking for on the open market? Oh, go figure. The asking price is down a bit, you rat bastard. Winnipeg and Philly. Him signing with Winnipeg would be horrific for us. And even then, God, he wants so much money. And then defense. I mean, I could still send an offer to one of the two and make it work. Of course, Iliakis signed on. I think at this point, with pretty much, I'm going to sim a day maybe, or maybe we just throw our name into the hat here, even though I doubt it goes. But we still have a little bit of money to throw. Let's send... I could send one big-time offer to each of them and just see if either take it. And I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to send a 1 year, $15 million deal to each of them, and that would leave me room to potentially still re-sign Nazarov and maybe get them back for that extra year. So, if we wanted to keep both of them, we would have had to commit to letting go of Nazarov and others. But now that we kind of know what Nazarov's asking price will be, we should be able to pull this off potentially. Or we lose Nazarov and get a good amount of compensation. But that is the game plan. That is the game plan. So we have approached Sestito, Niedermeyer, Nazarov, and Roenick. And we'll see how this plays out. And I'm not exactly sure how all of this is going to play out. I won't be surprised, though, to see the two big players leave. And I'm mainly intrigued about offer sheets. This is going to be the first day. Here we go. Roenick is back. All right. Next day. Sestito is gone. Brock Sestito declines a 1 year, $15 million offer. He goes to Columbus. Nazarov has accepted the 1-year, $6 million offer, which maybe I should have waited, but even then, we can double check, and Niedermayer's back too. So the casualty in all of this is that Brock Sestito is gone. You could argue what's more useful to us right now, Nazarov or a first and third round pick. I'm going to say I'm okay with Nazarov being here. Because with Nazarov still being here, the only player that we lost was Sestito. With Nazarov being here, the forward core is still looking good. Our defense is still ridiculous. I think I'd rather still have Nazarov, and he's going to be an RFA next year. So remember that. I feel like that worked out perfectly. So we get Nazarov back for 1 year. He'll be an RFA again next year, which I thought was the case, but I wasn't sure, and that's why I thought I screwed up. But the only casualty is that we've lost Brock Sestito, and like I said, every franchise mode was almost made by the franchise goaltender. Maybe not even exactly franchise potential, but whether you talk Jyrki Petrolainen in Hartford, Marcus Brodin with the Goon Squad. If you look at our list, our channel Hall of Famers, it's very rare that the starting goalie doesn't make it. And we've lost that goalie. Everything else about the team is the same. Iliakis is going to be taking over. I don't know what to do beyond this season. Like, this upcoming year might be the year where it's like, okay, like, it's either happening or it's not. We've kept the team together. Again, we'll see what happens with Nazarov. It depends on how this year goes. In a way, I hope that we win the cup and then can just look to really take a step back and rebuild for the final few years. Had we won the Stanley Cup, it would have been an easy decision. We just would have let everybody go. And then we just look to rebuild over the next few years. But, I mean, it is what it is. Brock Sestito is out. It'll be Len Iliakis and Ivan Saprikin holding down the fort for us with Crab and Fragapani in the AHL. Defensively, it's still going to be the same. I hate to say it, Cullen, but you're back down to the minors. Niedermayer is still here, which might be for the best, to be honest. And then forward-wise, that's our 10, 11, and 12 with Vito Loma. McCauley and Soro are close to being ready, but it's just going to be interesting to see how the season goes. That's what it comes down to. That's what it comes down to. I think I'm going to start McCauley at the NHL level because he can be sent down. So I'm going to send down Vito Luoma, and we'll start McCauley at the NHL level just because of waivers. So let's take a look here at what this roster is shaping up to be. I want to look, of course, goaltending we know is set with Iliakis over Saprikin. I want to see if somehow Saprikin was over him. The defense, I mean, we know what to expect at this point. And then forward-wise, it's a tough call as far as who plays where. I think for the most part, we're looking alright. It might be for the best to move Krog to the wing. It's tough to know exactly what to do here. I think I want McCauley and Eddie there. We know Krog's capable of putting up points. Hossa might be better suited for the fourth line. Aiden Gray put up 30 to 40. Krog is 30, 40, 50. Nylander, 30-ish points. Kaliev is around the same marker. Then again, so was Baldwin. I think what we'll do, can Nylander play center? Somewhat. I think we're going to have Kaliev, Nylander, Gray, Hossa, McCauley, and Eddie. We'll put Hossa at center. And maybe have that Ivanov, Fragapani, Redden pairing with Nazarov, Krog, and Baldwin. It's a wait-and-see kind of deal. It really is. There's no way to know exactly what's going to happen here as far as how this team is set up. I know we have a couple of guys, or at least one guy in Terrell, that needs to be taken out of the lineup, and we'll see who gets into the lineup for him. It could be Chuko, could be Theodore, Clements. So yeah, we have a couple of guys here who are eligible, unfortunately. So for the moment, let's just play Chuko until we get confirmation on overalls and everything. At the moment, let's take out Hogberg on defense. I'll put in Blatney until we see how good he is. And then goaltenders Crab and Esteban Fragapani. So for the moment, we're good, but we are in the post-Sestito era. And what that means for the team, I don't quite know. Let's sim roughly a month and a half into the season, and we'll take a look at some overalls and potentials and change up the lines if necessary at the NHL level. Overalls and potentials. I forgot to sign a scout. Whoops. Overalls and potentials mainly for the AHL. I knew I was going to forget to do something. Yeah, I forgot to sign the scout. Of course, we were just so focused on what to do with the main roster. I'm 99% sure, though, it was a European scout who was needed. So let me double check here. WHL, OHLQ, USA West, USA Central, USA East. Yeah, we need a European scout. I think... Where would you even be going? Russia, Liga, SHL. Like the Allsvenskan's not being scouted. But like everything else is. I don't know where the hell I'm missing a scout right now. Unfortunately, you know what? None of these scouts are even worth signing. Who gives a shit? We'll just wait. We'll roll with 19 scouts this year because whatever info they find me is probably not going to be that great anyway. So we'll roll with 19 scouts, and if we see someone's not being scouted properly, then so be it. But let's sim to the middle of November. We'll actually sim just after that Oilers game to the 16th of November. And we'll see what we're dealing with. How will this team get on? We didn't see a ton of crazy development. For the most part, we're looking the same. There's just one major difference. It is the Len Iliakis era. And how will this era be remembered? I do wonder. But after what I felt like was a half-decent draft, it's just to hit the wall like that. This would have been such an easier situation to deal with success, but again, that's the downside, as we went perfect in the preseason, which doesn't mean a whole hell of a lot, but it might be a sign of things to come. At least I hope so. Let's begin this next season. We start off hosting San Jose, and we'll see how it goes for both clubs this year. But I'm nervous, man. Because here's the thing, right? If we fail this year, like if it's another season where it's like, okay, we got to the playoffs and then nothing came of it, we have even more questions to answer. So the fact that we kept pretty much the majority of the core, all but one person here, if we falter again, we're already kind of teetering on that timeline of when are we rebuilding? Like, when do we kind of refuel? And if you look at a series, if you haven't checked out Draft to Glory, you should, because it's still, or Draft to Glory Goon Squad from last year, which is still one of my favorites that we've done. If you look at how that series went, it went the way that I was kind of talking about for this one earlier, where we waited a little bit too long. We tried for a little bit too long to win with the legends of the series, those initial few major recruits that the series became known for. We tried way too long to win with them, and that cost us our chance at the end of the series to maybe, look to change things up. As unfortunately here, our record has dwindled a bit, and you have to wonder if we might already be getting to that point in this series. North Bay is dominating the AHL. The Seals, however, find themselves at 8-6-2. 8-6-2. to kick off this season. Let's go ahead and take a look at everything. We are in a playoff spot, but that's meaningless this early on in the season. Let's take a look here. So Ivanov's up to an 88, has 11 assists in 16 games, no goals. Fragapani, and then Dylan Redden. You have Nazarov at 9 points, 9 points for Krog, only 4 points for Baldwin. Alright. Might be worth getting Baldwin off that second line, but Krog and Nazarov are doing okay. 5 points for Kaliev, 7 points for Nylander, 7 points for Gray. And in the fourth line, you have McCauley up to an 82. Not bad. 6 points, 1 point, and 1 point there. Right. I'm thinking Baldwin can play center, can he not? He can. Baldwin, kick rocks. I like the way the third line's playing. We're going to bump up McCauley. And we're going to have him play on the right-hand side with Nazarov. I mean, Nazarov has a great shot. He might be worth changing over to a sniper. That could be the debate for quite a few people, but I'm going to make those changes to the lines. Defensively, we're looking okay. I mean, there's nothing we're going to change. Goaltending, Iliakis is doing very well. It hasn't been the goaltending's fault. Both goalies are doing tremendously well. And the AHL behind the likes of Soro, Vita Luoma, Roenick, and Jean-Francois in terms of high overalls. It's also looking pretty ridiculous. But let's see here. So right now the low sixes are going to be the ones in danger. And the lowest of the low sixes is Brandon Chuko. And I believe Theodore is ours. He is not. How about at center? Clements, I'm 99% sure. Yeah, Clements is ours. Let's go ahead and put Clements into the lineup. We need to see how good he is. And then Jonah Hutton will take a seat for either one of you two, correct? Indeed. Let's go for Viborny, with him being a second-round pick. And we'll see how good these two are. But for the most part, that lineup is set. We're just going to base it off of higher overalls for now. The higher the overall, the more likely you are to get a half-decent spot. And we're going to go Cullen's actually up to an 81. So despite the fact that he can't skate, you could argue, had we just let Niedermeyer go, that might not have been the worst spot. Blatney is a 55. Low elite. So let's get... I think Saugus is the only other one that belongs to us, and that looks to be the case. Let's go ahead and put him into the lineup. How's the goaltending looking? Crab is an 80 out of nowhere. Jesus. He's dominating. Fragapani not so much. So, there you go. That is the current lay of the land. Goaltending on both levels has been amazing. It's just point production right now. We'll continue on. Let's sim about a month ahead. We'll go to this break here. We play every Sunday, except for 1 week, for like the next month and a half. That was crazy. Let's see what happens. We'll see if those changes take effect in a positive way, especially with Baldwin now being down on the fourth line. The subject of trading, of course, has come up, and that's not to say that trading hasn't played a factor in Draft to Glory before. It has. For those that have watched the majority, if not all, of the Draft to Glory series, there's been a time where we've waved the white flag on the try-hard edition. The... I'm trying to think of the right word here, but the meet you in the middle, not overly cheating with trading, but still trading to begin with, was basically the best one-for-one offer. So the only times we've ever really traded in Draft to Glory is it's like, okay, Nazarov, let's trade him one-for-one for the best draft pick we can get. So it'd be Nazarov for a first. It'd be Kurt Eddy for a fifth, and that's it. It's the only time we've ever really traded in Draft to Glory. And I'm not saying I'm considering that as an option, but I know people have talked about trading a lot, of course. And especially too, that topic always comes up when we lose somebody for free, like we happened to with Sestito. Although, as we saw with the goaltending, at least early on, it didn't appear to be the fault of our goalies. And if you look here at those losses, I mean, granted, the Ranger loss kind of sucks, the Hab loss kind of sucks, but then you look at the loss to Philly. The Philly one not as much as the Rangers and Habs, I guess, but you look at the loss to Anaheim and to Colorado, only 1-goal performances. You look at the loss to San Jose, only 1 goal. So I'll be intrigued to see what the updated save percentages are here, but I can't help but think it's perhaps the goal or the lack of goal scoring as opposed to goaltending. But we'll take another look. Let's see what we have. So goalie-wise, Iliakis has dropped off. Saprikin's been all right. So league average to above league average for Iliakis. Saprikin's been pretty damn good. So that's not a great sign. Niedermeyer and Rokon have been pretty good, as they have been for years. But Pielstrom and Richter are struggling tremendously. Zieler and Fuller haven't exactly been killing it, so we can afford to make that change. I'm going to put Richter with Zieler, Fuller with Pielstrom. And then forward-wise, Ivanov, 22 points, 2 goals, 20 assists. It's not bad. Again, when you consider player types, he probably is best suited for a two-way role, which is where he's at. So that's fine. Fragapane, 7 goals, 17 assists. Again, two-way or playmaker. Right now set to a two-way. Might not be the worst idea to change him back to a playmaker. And it was the same topic of discussion with one Dylan Redden. Whether or not we leave him as a power forward, set him up as a sniper, a two-way, a playmaker. I mean, he's versatile enough to do it all. And he was originally drafted as a power forward. We could look to change him back. McCauley hasn't been terrible. Currently listed as a playmaker with 99 offensive awareness. 96 defensive awareness. It's pretty ridiculous. You have Steve Krog, who's doing well. And Nazarov's also doing okay, but not scoring as many goals as you'd really want. You have Kaliev, Nylander, and Gray doing all right. And then the fourth line, Baldwin's doing what he does in terms of scoring goals. Eddie hasn't done much. I guess the main question right now is whether or not we look to change anything up when it comes to player types, which we could certainly look to do. And to be honest, it might not be the worst idea. Let me check the AHL here quickly. Again, just to double check this. So Crab's still killing it. Fragapane, the other Fragapane, not exactly doing all that well. Defensively, Saugus is a 68. Yeah, he'll definitely stay in. So that defense is fine. And then let's take a look here. Clemens, medium 6. Viborny is low 6. There was one other guy we wanted to check, and that was Ivani. And we'll see how good he is. I think I'm going to sim for a little bit longer, mainly so we can get that clarity on what's going on in the AHL. If we continue to struggle, looking at player type changes will definitely be an option. Beyond that, if we continue to struggle, then what options lie ahead, we will find out. As far as how we potentially handle an off-season, I'm not going to sit here and say, like, I'm willing to be like, trading. Like, look, the only way trading will ever be a thing, and again, this is my, I can't think of the right word, it's escaping me, but this is my I'll meet you halfway kind of deal here. This is my compromise. I couldn't think of the word compromise. Again, the only way we'll ever do trading and draft a glory is 1-for-1. The best, the player for the best individual pick we can possibly get. But even then, I don't exactly want to do that. At least not now. I'm not at the point where I'm like, yeah, we're running out of time. Let's try like hell to win one last one. Like, if we pull the trigger now on rebuilding, we can still get a decent amount before we really start to hit the end stages of this series. But, I mean, we're beyond the halfway point, or we're roughly at the halfway point. So, it's a tough call. We are starting to win games, so that's a positive for us. We have 7 straight wins. As I believe this was my stopping point, the 18th, or was it the 25th? It was definitely the 18th. 30 wins already for the Doolin Narwhals as well. So the team's putting up a fight. We're in 3rd place in the division. Edmonton's way up there. How is Columbus doing, by the way? 3rd place. So 24, 17, and 4. I was intrigued to see how one Brock Sestito would be doing. So one more look here. Goaltending, Saprikin doing very well. Goaltending hasn't been great, but it hasn't been miserable. So we have that going for us, and Saprikin's up to an 84. So he is turning into a threat against Iliakis, and he might be able to take that away from him. Having two goalies of that caliber dueling it out for the starting spot, it's not the worst case scenario, as defensively, Nico Pihlstrom still just doesn't quite have it, and he's kind of dragged down Fuller a little bit. So I think what I'm going to do is drop Richter back and just swap them around, try to get a different look. Offensively, Ivanov's doing well. Again, it says a two-way. He's fine. Fragapani, there's a debate over what to do. Redden's up to 20 goals. Second line, Krog's a little bit behind where I'd want him to be. Secondary scoring is definitely an issue right now. Eddie with 7 points, 10 points, 8 points there. Yeah, secondary scoring is a problem. And we need to look to change that. The question is, do we attempt the player type changes, or do we just outright change the people involved? I mean, looking at Kurt Eddie, he's never going to be a major player. It's like I tried to make the most of that shot, but it's like he's a two-way or a grinder type at heart. Baldwin still has that ridiculous playmaking ability, yet for some reason he scores goals more frequently. And then Hossa is a pretty strong two-way who's just not really putting up points, whereas on the flip side, again, you have the likes of Vita Luoma and Stefan Saros, who, I mean, in fairness, Saros is not even that major of a point getter. Roenick's doing well, and again, he's got that really interesting shot in offensive awareness category. Vita Luoma also doing quite well, really good playmaker. You have Francois, who's doing quite well. Again, not the best skater in the world, but an interesting offensive threat with that 96 offensive awareness. And then Steven Moroz has 21 goals. I think, again, we'll give it a little bit more time. And we'll more than likely call this episode quits a little bit sooner than I planned. I want to sim pretty much just shy, pretty much to February 1st. So here's my thought, right? We'll see where we are in the standings, and I'll leave it up to you whether or not, we look to make changes now, or whether or not we look to maybe switch up player types first, just to give some guys a chance before potentially sending them down and losing them on waivers. I'm mainly talking about guys like Kurt Eddie, and if we do send Eddie down, Hossa down, who ends up getting the call-up? Do we, again, look to optimize for player types here? We have a lot of options. It might take a little bit more tinkering around than some people would prefer. I can't help but think that maybe we should look to change things up, get players into ideal player types. I mean, we're 8-2 in our last 10. So in terms of changing up like a Dylan Redden, maybe that's not necessary. Maybe we can leave him and Fragapani in the right spot. But in terms of maybe changing up Hossa, Baldwin, and Eddie just to try and spark something before potentially sending them down and losing them on waivers, we'll see from there. And then, of course, on the second line, I'm still not overly happy with Krog. I think the easy fix would be just to swap him and Nylander. I think that's the easy fix. And to be honest, I don't hate the look of that top six. And then, unfortunately, Pihlstrom isn't exactly doing as well as we'd hope that he would do. Iliakis and Saprikin. Saprikin's still the better of the two at the moment. So overall, we find ourselves in an interesting spot where we're, of course, battling to be a playoff team. That's not exactly surprising when the only player that we lost was Brock Sestito. But we do still have question marks surrounding this team. There are still changes that we could look to make. Secondary scoring is still appearing to be a bit of an issue. I mean, we do have 6 players, at least for forwards, above 10 goals. But yeah, we need a little bit more. We need a little bit more. So I want to leave it up to you guys as far as any feedback, changes, suggestions that you have right now. as, surprise, surprise, Brock Sestito has a pretty strong save percentage. Not the best win-loss record, however. But I want you guys to be able to give your input as far as what we like to do here. In the next episode, we sim through the rest of the regular season. If we make the playoffs, we go through the first round matchup. If we miss, it'll be a draft episode, and I'll probably cry a lot. But it's a major episode. We let go of Brock Sestito. We've rebounded relatively well, but there are still those warning signs there that kind of scare me that it could end up being more of the same. And if we miss the playoffs, as far as what we look to do, there's just so much, an episode-by-episode basis, as far as how we handle this. And when you look, too, at some of the deals that are expiring, as it's tough. It's tough to know exactly what to do. And we got to time it right. Otherwise, we're going to find ourselves in a very rough pattern and not where we want to be. So for now, that'll do it. I thank you guys for watching. You know the deal. Check out everything in the description. You know, likes and vids and subscriptions and subscribes. Please subscribe. See you next time.